Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about what is, honestly, probably the biggest challenge facing pharma R&D leaders today, and that's the struggle to find, train, and just keep the kind of AI-savvy people you need to actually deliver on the industry's huge digital promise. And that quote right there, it hits the nail on the head. This is the pain point for pretty much every executive, bridging that gap. We all see the potential, right? The evidence for what this tech can do is everywhere. But actually getting it deployed at scale often feels like you're stuck in mud. So how do you get unstuck? Well, to answer that, we've broken it down into a clear roadmap. We're going to look at 3 big strategic moves for any leader trying to build an R&D team that's ready for the future. First step, the architecture of your team. Then we'll get into the infrastructure you need for upskilling. And finally, the really crucial part, the culture that makes top talent want to stay. Then we'll wrap it all up with how to turn this all into action. So let's kick things off with architecture, because this is where it all starts. It's about completely rethinking your team structure to get past this idea of finding the unicorn. Ah, the unicorn. You know who I'm talking about. That person who somehow has a PhD in molecular biology and is a total rock star at deploying massive deep learning models. The thing is, these people, they're basically mythical creatures. They barely exist. And you absolutely cannot build a scalable organization by hoping you'll find a few. The market is screaming at us. Stop hunting for unicorns. So here's the big shift in thinking. Instead of searching for these perfect 1 in a million individuals, the real solution is to restructure the team itself to manage and guide complex AI systems. We're talking about something called agentic AI here. Think of it as smart, autonomous software that can see, reason, and even work together to get things done. And this is a fantastic example of how that works. Take this setup for managing chronic liver disease. Instead of one giant monolithic AI, you have this network of agents. On level 1, you've got your specialist agents. They're like digital lab techs, each one laser-focused on a single job. Then on level 2, you have coordination agents. They're the project managers of the operation, making sure everything flows smoothly. And up on level 3, you've got the meta agents, providing that super important ethical and quality control. So what's the payoff for setting things up this way? It's huge. A workflow like this can slash the time it takes to get a diagnosis and treatment plan from, say, 15 to 18 days, all the way down to just 5 to 7. That's a 65% speed boost. It's not just faster clinical work. It's a massive competitive edge that you get from building your team the right way. All right, let's move on to our second big point. Infrastructure. Because you can have the smartest people and the fanciest, most expensive technology in the world, but if it's a pain to use, if there's friction, none of it matters. This leads to a concept I find fascinating. Implementation hypertension. Just think about high blood pressure. We have good drugs, we know what works, but only about 1/3 of people with hypertension actually have it under control. There's this huge gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it. Well, that exact same kind of friction, it exists inside our R&D organizations. Let's look at a real-world example. A study on these cardiovascular risk management dashboards that were built into electronic health records. Now, the whole idea was to standardize how doctors record key info, like smoking habits or blood pressure, to make the data clean and perfect for research. But here's what actually happened. The dashboards were a massive failure. For something as basic as a patient's history of heart disease, it was only being put in the correct, structured box less than 30% of the time. The data was there, sure, but it was all locked away in messy, free text notes where it's basically useless for large-scale analysis. And the study found it really boiled down to 3 things. First, organizational problems. Nobody was really sure who owned the whole CVRM process. Second, technical problems. The system was just clunky and not fun to use. But the real killer, the one that trumped everything else, was operational. When a doctor has 10 minutes with a patient, it is just plain faster to type a quick note than to click through a bunch of boxes. The friction of the tool was just too high. But, and this is a really important but, when you get the implementation right, the payoff is immediate. One meta-analysis found that when decision support tools are well integrated, they're linked to a 15% drop in medication errors. That's a direct win. This is why upskilling can't just be about teaching a new tool. It has to be about finding and removing these real-world roadblocks for your team. Okay, so that brings us to our third, and honestly, maybe the most important imperative: culture. Let's be real. Big tech can often throw more money at people,
So what's pharma's secret weapon? It has to be purpose. It's about building a culture of trust and being absolutely relentless about making life easier for patients.
And this kind of culture, it's built on 3 key pillars. First, there's transparency. You have to be open about how your AI models are built and tested. Second, explainability. No more black box magic. People need to understand how the AI is thinking. And finally, governance. This is the foundation. Solid data practices, top-notch security, and strong ethics. This is the stuff that the best, most mission-driven people demand. And you can see this purpose in action when you look directly at the patient experience. Check this out. Nearly 90% of patients say they'd probably join a clinical trial that was fully remote. Compare that to just a third for a trial that's fully on-site. Making things easier for patients isn't just a nice thing to do, it's a retention tool. It shows your team that their work is solving real human problems. And this approach, it drives incredible value. For example, one study found that people in a digital program for musculoskeletal issues had an 82% lower risk of getting low-value surgery compared to people in traditional physical therapy. An 82% drop in unnecessary procedures. Now that is a purpose-driven story you can tell. Here's another powerful one, this time from immunology. Remote monitoring systems were able to detect a life-threatening complication, cytokine release syndrome, a median of 7 hours earlier than standard nursing care. 7 hours! In a life-or-death situation, that's everything. This is the kind of innovation that gets the visionaries you need excited to come to work every day. Okay, so let's tie all of this together. For any leader out there, winning the war for AI talent isn't about doing just one of these things. It's about tackling all 3 of them together. So let's quickly recap the game plan. 1, on architecture. Stop hunting for unicorns. Instead, build teams that can manage these new AI frameworks. 2, on infrastructure. Think of upskilling as your way to solve real-world friction. Your goal is to make the right way the easy way. And 3, on culture. Use trust and real tangible patient value as your #1 tool for keeping your best people. You know, if we zoom all the way out, it really comes down to this. We are moving from one era to another. We're leaving the era of evidence, where we had to prove that AI and digital health even worked. We're now firmly in the era of implementation, where the real challenge is just getting these tools integrated and deployed across the entire company. The biggest roadblock now is simply organizational friction. So the question I'll leave you with is this one. How are you going to shift your organization's entire system, its processes, its culture, to make that leap from the era of evidence to the era of implementation? Because making that transition, that's what's going to define who wins in the future of pharma R&D.